Have you ever watched someone get completely humiliated and felt that slow burn of satisfaction when the universe finally corrected itself? That's what this story is about. And I want you to hold on to this feeling because by the time we get to the end, you're going to understand something. Most people spend their whole lives never learning. This happened at a high-end fitness center in Scottsdale, Arizona. The kind of place where a monthly membership costs more than some people's rent. The kind of place where the equipment is always clean, the lighting is always flattering. And the people, well, the people are a whole other story. Terrence Okafor was 53 years old, broad-shouldered, with the kind of quiet stillness that made people either respect him immediately or underestimate him completely. He was black, with close-cropped silver at his temples and hands that had seen decades of real work. Every morning at 5:47 a.m., he arrived at Apex Performance and Wellness in his gray uniform, the one with the embroidered patch on the chest that read maintenance, pushed his cart through the service entrance, and began his day before most members had even hit snooze on their second alarm. He moved through those gleaming corridors like he was invisible, and to most people there, he was. Terrence didn't talk much. He never complained. He wiped down machines, replaced towels, fixed the things that broke quietly in the night. He knew every pipe in the building, every fuse box, every shortcut through the back halls. He had been doing this for 4 years, and in those 4 years, not one member had ever asked him his last name. That was fine with Terrence. He hadn't taken this job to be known. What nobody at Apex knew, what nobody in that whole zip code knew, was that before the gray uniform and the maintenance cart, Terrence Okafor had spent 22 years in the United States Army Special Forces. He had reached the rank of Master Sergeant. He had served 4 combat deployments. He had trained soldiers in close-quarters combat, survival tactics, and psychological resilience at Fort Bragg for 6 years after his last tour. He had a classified commendation for actions in a situation that would never appear in any public record. And after his youngest daughter's medical crisis pulled him back to Arizona, he had quietly left that world behind and taken the first steady job he could find near her. He hadn't told anyone. There was no reason to. The past was the past. But the past has a way of showing up exactly when you need it. Connor Price was 29 years old, 6 feet tall, white, with the jaw of a cologne ad and the confidence of someone who had never been told no in a way that actually stuck. He had grown up wealthy in Paradise Valley, attended a private university on a partial athletic scholarship for wrestling, and now ran his family's commercial real estate development firm. Or rather, had his name on the door while his father's longtime associates ran it for him. Connor had been training MMA, mixed martial arts, for 3 years. He trained 6 days a week with a private coach at Apex. He was legitimately skilled. His ground game was solid, his striking had improved, and he had won 2 amateur bouts at local events. This made him, in his own estimation, dangerous. He wore compression gear that cost $200 a set. He drove a Porsche Cayenne. He spoke loudly about his macros, his recovery protocols, his upcoming amateur card. He never said thank you to the staff. Not once. Not ever. The other trainers and coaches at Apex had a nickname for him that they only used in the break room, the Peacock. It started on a Tuesday in March. Terrence was on his hands and knees near the edge of the main training floor, replacing a section of rubber matting that had started to peel up at the corner. It was a tripping hazard, and he had flagged it 3 times before management finally put it on the schedule. So there he was, utility knife in hand, carefully trimming the adhesive backing, when Connor Price walked out of the locker room with his training bag over one shoulder and spotted him. Connor stopped, looked down. "Hey," he snapped his fingers, actually snapped them, the way you'd call a dog. "You're going to want to get that done before my session. My coach books this floor at 9. Terrence looked up. Not fast, not slow, just looked up. "I'll be finished," he said. Connor stared at him for another second, seemed to decide that was sufficient, and walked away. That would have been the whole story, if that had been the end. But it wasn't the end. because Connor came back 20 minutes later with his coach, a compact, serious man named Derek Sutton, who had trained genuinely competitive fighters for 15 years and had the battered nose to prove it, and found Terrence still working on the far edge of the mat, finishing the last corner. "I thought you said you'd be done," Connor said. Louder this time, his coach was standing right there. "Almost," Terrence said, without looking up. Connor laughed, the short, sharp laugh of a man performing amusement for an audience. "Almost. Okay." He dropped his bag loudly on the bench. "Yo, Derek, you see this? The janitor runs the schedule now." Derek Sutton said nothing. He had been doing this long enough to recognize the difference between a man worth impressing and a moment worth involving himself in. Terrence finished the last corner, pressed it flat with his palm, gathered his tools into his cart, and stood up. He was taller than Connor by almost an inch, which Connor noticed and didn't like. "All yours," Terrence said. He pushed his cart toward the hallway without another word. It might have stayed there, a small, ugly moment, the kind that happens 100 times a day in places exactly like Apex Performance and Wellness, where some people treat service staff as furniture that occasionally speaks. It might have been another Gray Tuesday that faded into nothing. Except Connor Price couldn't let it go. He had a problem, one he would never have admitted to anyone, including himself. He needed an audience. He needed the room to know that he was the most significant person in it. It was the hunger that lived behind all that confidence, the thing the colonnade jaw could never quite hide. And something about Terrence Okafor's complete unperturbed silence bothered him in a way he couldn't name. The man hadn't flinched, hadn't rushed, hadn't apologized, hadn't performed deference. He had just finished what he was doing and left. Like Connor wasn't the most important thing in the room. Like Connor was just some guy. This was unacceptable. The following Thursday, Connor arrived early. He was in a loud conversation with two younger men from his recreational flag football league who had come to watch his training session. The kind of guests who were technically against gym policy, but who Connor brought anyway, because management never said anything to him. He was holding court near the water station when Terrence came through pushing his cart, this time to refill the towel bins along the back wall. "Hey, hey!" Connor turned and pointed, grinning at his friends. "It's the floor guy. Terrence, right?" He had bothered to learn the name. That was almost worse. Terrence kept moving toward the towel bins. "Morning, you ever train? Like, do any martial arts or whatever?" "A long time ago," Terrence said. He pulled open the bin, began stacking folded white towels. Connor looked at his friends, smiled, looked back. "Yeah? Like what? Karate?" There was something in the word karate the way he said it. Something that meant the fake kind kids do in strip mall studios. "Something like that," Terrence said. "You should come spar sometime." Connor said it casually. "The way you offer something you're already sure will be refused." "I'm serious. It'd be fun. Good experience for you," one of the friends snorted. The other one pulled out his phone. He looked at Connor for a moment, not with anger, not with amusement, just with the flat, assessing look of a man taking accurate inventory. "I'm good," he said, and he pushed his cart away. But Connor had an audience now, and that made him reckless. The following Saturday was a busy morning. The main floor had 6 people training independently, 2 more working with coaches. Derek Sutton was in the corner running Connor through a series of clinch drills. A young woman named Bria Hollis, one of Apex's front desk staff, 22, who had worked there long enough to know every regular, was organizing equipment near the far wall. And Terrence was there too, fixing a cable on one of the resistance machines that had frayed at the housing. Connor stopped in the middle of his drill. He'd been watching Terrence the whole session. That had not been subtle. "Hey, Terrence." He said it loud enough for the whole floor to hear. "I've got $100 that says you can't survive 2 minutes with me. Not fighting, just defensive. You don't have to throw a punch. Just see if you can avoid me for 2 minutes." The floor went quiet the way floors go quiet when something uncomfortable is happening that no one wants to directly acknowledge. Derek Sutton lowered his pad. Connor, I'm serious. It'd be fun. It's a challenge. Connor was already moving, already spreading his arms in that theatrical, come on, it's no big deal gesture. Or is 100 not worth your time? He was grinning. His friends from Thursday were back. One of them was already recording on his phone. Terrence set down his tool. He looked at the frayed cable. He looked at the machine. And then he looked at Connor Price with an expression that contained no anger whatsoever, which was somehow the most unsettling thing about it. I don't think that's a good idea, Terrence said. Why not? Connor took a step toward the center of the mat. You said you trained. A long time ago. Right? I'm not asking you to fight, just move around. He tilted his head. Unless you're worried. Someone on the far side of the room murmured something. Bria Hollis had stopped what she was doing and was very still. Young man, Terrence said, and the two words came out so quiet and so steady that Connor actually paused. You don't know what you're asking for. The room sat in that sentence for a moment. Connor laughed again. The peacock laugh. It's 2 minutes. Relax. I'll be gentle. More laughter from the doorway. And here is where Terrence Okafor made the decision. Not the decision to fight. That wasn't really a decision. That was just physics. The decision he made was to teach. Because there is a difference, and Terrence had learned it the hard way a long time ago in places that don't appear on maps. All right, he said. 2 minutes. What happened next, Bria Hollis would describe later as the most uncomfortable thing I have ever watched, and I've worked retail. Derek Sutton stepped back without a word. He had been in enough training facilities to recognize when something was about to flip. He crossed his arms and watched. Connor came in confident. He had a good stance, feet properly placed, hands up, hips loaded. 3 years of real training showed. He moved forward with controlled aggression, reaching for a grip on Terrence's shoulder to initiate a clinch. Terrence wasn't there. He had stepped left, not quickly, or not visibly quickly. But the step had been so precisely timed that Connor's hands closed on empty air, and the momentum of his own reach left him a half step off balance, tiny, barely visible, but enough for Terrence, who had adjusted his weight without appearing to adjust anything, so that he was simply elsewhere. Connor reset, came again. This time with a faint right, then driving forward low, wrestling instinct kicking in, going for a double leg. Terrence's hips dropped and turned in a single motion that deflected Connor's drive completely, redirected it sideways, and left Connor's forehead approximately 6 inches from the mat before he caught himself with his hands. He got up fast. He wasn't smiling anymore. The phone recording had gone very quiet. Connor came harder this time. 3 quick strikes, a level change, real aggression now, the ego fully engaged. And Terrence did something that no one who was there would be able to fully explain when they tried to describe it afterward. He simply did not get hit, not by slipping, not by retreating, by reading. Every movement Connor made, Terrence had already adjusted to it by the time it arrived, the way water moves around a stone with absolute, effortless inevitability. 40 seconds in, Connor threw his best punch, his right hand, full commitment. Terrence caught his wrist, not aggressively. Just held it. One hand, Connor's wrist, while Connor's full weight and momentum were behind that strike, and then he simply stopped it, the way you'd stop a door from slamming. He held it for 3 full seconds, then let go. Connor pulled his arm back. He was breathing hard. His face had done something complicated. The friends in the doorway had gone completely silent. The phone was no longer recording. That's 1 minute, Derek Sutton said from the corner. Nobody moved. Terrence took a step back and looked at Connor. Not with triumph, not with contempt, with something that looked almost precisely like patience. We can stop here, Terrence said. Connor looked at him. His jaw worked once. Then he nodded. Yeah, he said. His voice had changed. Smaller. Yeah, okay. Afterward, while the rest of the floor slowly resumed its usual sounds, the slap of gloves, the whir of treadmills, the careful resumption of normal life, Derek Sutton walked over to where Terrence was returning to the cable machine he'd been fixing. I don't want to pry, Derek said, low and measured, but what am I watching right now? Terrence picked up his tool. Just a guy who did some training. Derek Sutton had spent 30 years in and around combat sports. He recognized precisely what he had just witnessed, and he also recognized that the man in front of him did not want to be made a spectacle of. He respected that. "Okay," he said, and walked away. But Bria Hollis had seen all of it. And Bria Hollis knew Connor's father, Vincent Price, because Vincent Price was the man who had personally cut the deal with Apex's corporate ownership to install his son's membership as part of a building lease agreement. She knew who Connor was. She also had worked with Terrence Okafor for 4 years and had watched every member of this facility talk past him, through him, and over him for the entirety of that time. She pulled out her phone and made a call that had nothing to do with Connor Price. She called a woman named Adrienne Cole, who was the regional director of Veteran Services for Arizona, and who had been, several years ago, Bria's aunt's college roommate, and who was perpetually searching for specific kinds of people for a specific kind of program. "I think I found someone you want to meet," Bria said. What neither Terrence nor anyone else at Apex knew was that Adrienne Cole had been building a proposal for the past 18 months. A public-private training initiative called Foundation, designed to bring elite-level tactical and physical instruction into underserved communities and school districts across the Southwest. She needed instructors, not coaches with credentials on paper. Instructors with the real thing: combat, experience, training methodology, and the specific quiet authority that can't be faked in a room full of teenagers who are looking very hard for reasons not to trust you. She had been looking for exactly the profile that Bria described. 3 days after that Saturday morning, Adrienne Cole walked into Apex Performance and Wellness, found Terrence Okafor restocking the supply room, and introduced herself. Terrence looked at her. He had the expression of a man who understood immediately that something was about to change. "I don't do public things," he said. "I know," Adrienne said. "That's actually why I'm here." He listened. She was direct, which he appreciated. She laid out the program, the scope, the schools, the funding, the structure, what was needed, and why. No flattery, no performance. Just the facts of a problem and a genuine ask. When she was done, Terrence was quiet for a moment. "The kids," he said. "They actually want this." "Some of them," Adrienne said. "The ones who need it most usually don't know it yet." He thought about that. He thought about a version of himself at 17, restless, without direction, with a particular combination of energy and anger that had needed somewhere to go. He had been lucky. He had found structure before the structure found him the other way. Not everyone got that. "When does it start?" he said. 3 months later, the Foundation program launched across 4 middle schools and 2 high school districts in the Phoenix metro area. Terrence Okafor, listed in the program literature simply as a veteran instructor and certified defensive tactics specialist, because he had asked them not to use his rank or full service record, led sessions on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons and Saturday mornings. The first week, 12 kids showed up. By the 4th week, it was 47. By the end of the semester, the program had a wait list. It wasn't the physical training, though that was part of it. It was something about the way Terrence taught. He spoke in short, direct sentences. He never raised his voice. He showed something once and then stood back and let you fail at it until you figured out why. He did not believe in false praise. He believed in honest correction and then absolute confidence that you would get there. The kids who responded to that, and there were more of them than anyone had expected, came back every week with a specific hunger that is very hard to manufacture and very easy to recognize. One afternoon, a 14-year-old named Marcus, not the boy's given name. They called him that after he deflected 3 consecutive strikes from a kid twice his size without retreating. Asked Terrence how long he'd been doing this. "A long time," Terrence said. "Like how long?" Terrence thought about it. "Since before your parents were thinking about each other," he said. The boy laughed so hard he fell off the bench. Connor Price came back to Apex the Monday after that Saturday. He came at his usual time with his usual bag, And he trained with Derek Sutton. He was quieter, he didn't bring guests, he didn't hold court at the water station. He trained, just trained. At the end of his session, when Terrence was passing through the hallway with his cart, Connor stopped him. "Hey," Connor said. Terrence stopped. Connor looked at the floor for a second, then back up. "I was being a jerk," he said. There was no theater in it, no audience. Just the corridor and the two of them. "Yeah," Terrence said. "That's it? Just yeah? What do you want me to say?" Connor opened his mouth, closed it. Then something shifted on his face, and for just a moment, under all the Porsche Cayenne and the competition record and the private university and the family money, there was just a 29-year-old man standing in a hallway trying to figure out who he actually was without all of that. "I didn't think you'd be," he started, then stopped. "I didn't even ask who you were. I just assumed." "You did," Terrence said. Not unkindly, just accurately. Another pause. "For what it's worth," Connor said, "that thing you did with my wrist, he mimed it. How do you do that?" And Terrence looked at him. For a long moment, the assessment was back, the flat, steady inventory. And then, for the first time in this whole story, Terrence Okafor smiled, a small one, the real kind. "Come to Apex next Saturday," he said. 8 a.m. Bring different shoes. He nodded at Connor's training shoes. "Those are for show. You want shoes you can actually move in." Connor blinked. Are you serious?" "I don't make offers I'm not serious about," Terrence said. He pushed his cart around the corner and disappeared. Bria Hollis told the story to her cousin. Her cousin posted a version of it online, without names, described simply as something that had happened at her cousin's gym. It got 30,000 shares in a week. People in the comments wrote things like, "I needed this today," and "This is why you should never assume," and, the one that appeared most, in variations, again and again, "The quietest person in the room is usually the one who doesn't need to prove anything." None of that reached Terrence, or if it did, he never mentioned it. He was too busy on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons in Phoenix, watching a 14-year-old who'd been told his whole life to sit down and be quiet, finally find out what his body could do when someone treated him like the answer instead of the problem. Here's what I want you to take away from this story. Terrence Okafor didn't need Connor Price to know who he was. He didn't need the floor, or the audience, or the moment of reversal, for his life to have meaning. He was already doing the work, quietly, without recognition, without applause. Because the people who actually know what they're worth don't need anyone to confirm it for them. That's the part that's easy to admire from a distance. The harder question is the one I want to leave you with today. Are you someone who waits for proof before you show respect? Or do you extend it before you know the resume? Because the truth is, and I think you already know this, most people carrying something extraordinary look nothing like what you'd expect. Think about someone in your life right now who you might be underestimating. Someone you pass every day. Someone whose name you might not have bothered to learn. What would it change if you did? If this story made you feel something, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you believe that every person deserves to be seen for more than what they look like on the surface, share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to Dale Stories, because every week we bring you exactly this: the real, the human, the things that remind us what actually matters. See you next time.